Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, we are going to be reviewing the ColourPop Just My Luck Green 9-pan eyeshadow palette. If you guys are familiar with my channel, you would know I have been requesting for a palette like this to launch from ColourPop ever since I tried the Ooh La La one and then the It's My Pleasure. I love those monochromatic 9-pan palettes and you guys know I have been waiting and it's finally here. I just want to say that you guys are literally the cutest people ever, because when ColourPop announced this palette to be launching, so many of you guys tagged me in the post and just said like, your wish came true, they finally made a green eyeshadow palette. I think it's so cute that you guys remembered that I've been waiting for a green eyeshadow palette. But with that being said, in today's review I will be giving you guys my thoughts on the shade selection in this palette. I'll also be giving you guys a couple of comparisons. There honestly wasn't too many, but I'll show you guys anyway what I found, and of course I will show you my 3 looks that I created with this one little palette. I also want to mention that I did not purchase this palette myself. This was sent to me in my ambassador box, but that won't sway my opinion. So yeah, with that being said, if you guys are interested in hearing my thoughts on the Just My Luck eyeshadow palette, then just continue watching. Alright, so to get started with my review, let's start off with some product info. You can get the Just My Luck eyeshadow palette for $12 US. It will come with 5 mattes and 4 shimmers, and it also comes with a mirror as well. In this eyeshadow palette, every single shade in here are brand new shades. They do not exist in single shadows, they don't exist in other palettes. These are all brand new to ColourPop, to this palette. And I just thought that was worth mentioning just because with the Ooh La La and the It's My Pleasure, I would say about 4 to 5 shades in those palettes are already existing shades, or they already exist in other palettes. So this one is completely new, no existing shades in here. So now jumping straight into my review, I think this palette just shows that they like really take in all the feedback that they get, because I know I wasn't the only person requesting for a green palette. When I would go through the comments, so many people were requesting for a green palette to be their next one. And then like I mentioned that there are 5 mattes in here and there's less shimmers. That's something that I always find myself repeating a lot in my reviews. I'm always saying, I wish there was more mattes than shimmers. If you have more mattes, you can create more looks. And because of this, I was able to use all of the shadows in this palette. So within my 3 demos, I was able to use everything that was in this palette. Usually I will miss out like on a couple of shimmers because you just can't fit that many shimmers into an eye look. Usually you only swipe 1 on your eye. And I think it's just a big thumbs up for ColourPop. You know, they're listening to what they want. I mean, I know a lot of us are saying to ColourPop to like slow down, and I'm not sure if they're really listening to that. But for everything else, I think they are listening to what we want. So first I want to talk about the shade range in this palette, because ColourPop, personally, I feel like they do not have a lot of green eyeshadows. Eyeshadows in general, I feel like green is probably the color that I own least of. I really want to talk about the range in here because it is really great. So for the mattes, you have a minty pastel matte, which could be used as a highlight. Then you have a transition, which is kind of your light medium tone. Then you have more of a darker green, and then you have like a deep dark green. I wish it could have been a little bit darker, but it does the job. You can still create a lot of depth and smokiness to an eye look. And then you have more of like a medium olive green in here. It's good that you have a highlight, a transition, a medium, and a dark, and then you have another medium to play with. And then for the shimmers, the 4 shimmers are honestly so different from each other. This one is a bright lime green, this one is more of an olive, this one is a darker emerald, and this one is more of a brighter emerald. They all look different on the eyes, and I just feel like the range in here is really great. And for the most part, I do not have eyeshadows like this in my collection from ColourPop, or just in general. I just don't have a lot of green eyeshadows. It's just great that for these monochromatic palettes, when you close it, like you just know what's inside. One of you guys actually messaged me on Instagram saying you weren't sure about the shade range, but after using it, I can see there's a purpose for everything. And like I did mention before, I did end up using all of the shades in here. And also keeping in mind that none of these are existing, you know, they are all brand new shades to ColourPop. I would say I think I found probably 2 dupes which is not a lot to be honest. Everything else that I'm going to show you in my dupes section are going to just be comparisons. I would say the one that I duped, like it was exactly the same, I wouldn't say exactly, but like almost exactly the same, is Big Bangs. But everything else I would say is pretty unique and something I don't have. So I know with greens it can be in a very intimidating shade to work with. I feel like a lot of people think it's very patchy and it's just a weird color to work with. All of these shadows worked beautifully. The only shadow that I had an issue with was the one down here, which is called Charmed. I just found this one to be very patchy, but all the other matte greens work perfectly fine. They blend out very easily. I did a green look with the Jaclyn Hill one, and it was like a dark green emerald smoky eye, and I did a very similar look, which is look number 2 in this video. It's very similar. I would say that using this palette was much easier than using the Jaclyn Hill Dark Magic palette. So overall, I personally would recommend this palette to you guys. I know green is not a color that you guys would wear on the everyday, and I honestly don't know how much wear you'll get out of this, but on days when you want to incorporate some greens into your eye look, or you're doing a Halloween look or something more creative and you need a green eyeshadow palette, I think this is a really great one to have. I think the shades are really pretty, and I feel like because there aren't many like dedicated green eyeshadow palettes out in the market, and this one is just so affordable, it works great for the most part besides that one shadow. I mean, why not? You know, it's just great to have on hand. Okay, now I just want to quickly talk about my little dupes. They're mainly just comparisons. So the first shade that I want to compare is 50/50, and I'm comparing it to the Super Shock shadow in the shade Empire. You can see that 50/50 is more of like a dark forest green, whereas Empire is more of like an emerald green. And it's a Super Shock shadow, so the formula is a little bit different. There's a lot more glitters in Empire, but I thought I would just give you that comparison so you guys can see what it looks like. We did have Big Bangs, I mentioned earlier, is the one that I found dupes to, and very close dupes. I would say Emerald Dream from Through My Eyes is the shade that compares most to it. You can see it's very similar. I would say that Big Bangs is maybe a little bit more teal, and Emerald Dream is like a little bit more emerald, but honestly, once it's on the eyes, you probably can't tell too much of a difference. Everything else there, I just want to show you guys some comparisons. I also want to talk about Mary Jane. I saw that there was a Super Shock shadow on ColourPop's website called Fizz. I don't know if this is a comparison, but when I saw Fizz on the website, I was like, oh, that kind of looks like Mary Jane a little bit. I don't know if it is, but I thought I would just throw it out there. And then we have Olive You. I compared this to EBB from the Good Sport palette and IE from the Perception palette. I would say Olive You is obviously a little bit more olive, and EBB is a bit more yellow, and then IE is more of like a dirty olive. Very similar vibe. I wouldn't say it's a complete dupe, but definitely comparable. And for the last shade I wanted to compare is Mo Bamba to the shade in the Through My Eyes palette called Moody. They are just completely different. I just thought maybe one of you guys would have asked me for a comparison because it is like a dark emerald green. But obviously the one in Karen's palette is a lot more blue based, and the one in the Just My Luck is definitely pure green. So yeah guys, it honestly wasn't many comparisons to find. Like, I was pretty quick with finding my dupes. Usually dupes take me like an hour to an hour and a half going through each palette finding dupes, but this one did not take me long at all because I just knew there wasn't many greens in ColourPop's family. So it's great we have this edition now. Hopefully they will come out with more green shadows in the future. That is it for the review portion. Let's go ahead and get started with the swatches and the 3 demos. Alright, so getting started with the first look, we're going to go into the shade Charmed, and we're going to pack this all over our lid space. And once you feel like the product has left your brush, you want to bring it up towards the crease area. We don't want to bring it too high because I do want this look to be a little bit more subtle, and I want to focus on the lower lash line more. Because the shade is a little bit darker and it's not really a transition shadow, you can go in with a completely clean brush and you can use this to blend out the outer edges, and that will really help with blending out a darker shade. Now using the shade Kiss My Ass, we're going to place this on our lower lash line, all the way from the outer corner to the inner corner. We're just going to smoke this one out. Then taking the shade Mo Bamba, I'm going to push this up against my lower lash line. We're just going to create some definition there. Like I mentioned before, I want most of the focus to be on the lower lash, and I think this is a really great way to incorporate the green shadows. If you don't want to go too hard out or too in your face, putting it on your lower lash line is a very subtle way to do so. Taking a bit of Olive You, I'm going to place this in our inner corners, and we're going to use this as our inner corner highlight just to add some more green into the eye look. I love how this eye incorporates different tones of green. And lastly, I'll be taking my ColourPop Creme Gel Liner in the shade Teaspoon, and I'm going to use this to tightline my bottom waterline. Again, this is going to bring more attention to the waterline, and it's also going to make our brown eyes pop. So that is it for the eyeshadows. I'm going to go off camera and draw my wing and pop on my lashes, and I'll be back to show you guys the final look. For my lashes, I am wearing the Boudoir Lights from House of Lashes, and for my final lip pairing, I decided to go with the Velvet Blur Luxe lipstick in the shade Hey Mr. DJ. I hope you guys enjoyed the first look. I wanted to create something that was a little bit more subtle in a way that you could wear green on your eyes, because I know it's not like an everyday color. So hopefully this is more of like an everyday green eyeshadow look that you could wear. Alright, so to get started with the second look, we're going to first take the shade Kiss My Ass, and we're going to be using this as our transition shadow. Because we are playing with greens, they are, in my opinion, a bit trickier, so I would just say take your time with it. Use a little amount at first, and then you can always build it up. I feel like that's just the best way to work with these kind of more colorful eyeshadows. And using the same shade, we're going to run this on our lower lash line, right from the outer corner to the inner corner, making sure at the outer corner we're going to be connecting the shadow, so that way when the whole look is completed, everything looks together as one. Moving on to the shade Act Natural, we're going to start placing this on our lid space, right from the inner corner to the outer corner as well. We want to keep it quite low to the lash line, and once there's not much product left on the brush, that's when you want to slowly build it up towards the crease. We just want to keep everything low at first, because I feel like if we're going to place it right into the crease and bring it down, we can take it a bit too high, and that will be just a little bit overwhelming. I will also take a little pencil brush just to get right into the inner corners of my eyes. Since there's a lot of folding there, it's hard to go in with such a big brush. So just use brushes that are going to suit your eye shape. I will need to go in with more of a fluffier brush to get the general pigment in there, and then I'll go in with the pencil brush to get into the little inner corners and make sure the color is put onto my eyes evenly. Moving along to the shade Mo Bamba. Again, I'm going to be focusing this on my lid space, but once again, we're going to focus it more towards the lash line. So we want to keep the darker shades closer to the lash line and the lighter shades more towards the crease, so that way it's creating like a gradient smoky eye. And I'm also going to take that shade on my lower lash line. I'm going to press this up against my waterline, making that very smoky. And this is going to help balance the whole eye look, because we don't want the eyes to look too top heavy. We want them to be quite even. And now I'll be taking the shade 50/50 on my ring finger, and I'm not going to use this wet, just taking a little bit. I'm gonna dab that on to my lid space, focusing the product first on the center of my eyes, and then we'll blend it out to the outer and inner corners. And the reason why I'm using my finger and not a brush is that the finger will give you more of like a diffused look. There will be no harsh lines, nothing more like a cut crease or anything. It's just really gonna diffuse the product around the eyes. Now I will be taking the ColourPop Cream Gel Liner in the shade Fast Lane, and I'm going to use this to tightline my entire bottom waterline. And lastly, using the shade Chances Are, we're going to use this as our inner corner highlight. I feel like matte inner corner highlights are very in right now, and like neon inner corner highlights. So I really like this pastel shade. So now I'm just going to quickly go off camera, do my wing, pop on my lashes, and I'll be back to show you guys the final look. For my lashes, I am wearing the Demure Lights from House of Lashes. And for my final lip pairing, I am wearing the ColourPop Luxe Lipstick in the shade Layover. I hope you guys like this look as well. I know it's a lot brighter and like in your face, a bit more dramatic. But when I got this palette, I knew I wanted to create a very intense monochromatic green eye look. So this is my take on it. I like how it turned out. I also think it makes my brown eyes pop out even more because it's just surrounded by green eyeshadow and I love it. So hopefully you guys do too. Getting started with the final eye look, we're going to start off with the shade Kiss My Ass. Again, this is going to be our transition shadow, and just like how I explained it in the second look, you want to keep this quite low and just take your time with it, with blending it up. I'm also going to take that same shade and bring it down to my lower lash line, right from the outer corner to the inner corner, exactly the same as the second look. And then I'll take the shade Act Natural, and we're going to first place this at the outer corner of our lid, and we're going to slowly bring it in towards the inner crease. You just want to make sure you're getting some darkness into that inner crease because that's where the cut crease will be, and we want that to contrast against something. And again, I'm also going to take this on my lower lash line, but I'm only going to focus it at the outer third of my lower lash. I'm not going to bring it all the way in. And now taking the shade Mo Bamba, I'm going to put this again at the outer corner and I'm going to bring it towards the inner crease as well. Literally just repeating the same step as before, but we're using a little bit of a darker shade and a smaller brush. Alright, so now I'm going to be taking some concealer on the back of my hand and we're going to start cutting out my crease. I'm going to put this in right at the inner corner of my lid space and I'm going to bring it up towards my crease where I feel like it should stop. And then I will look up to see how high I need to take it to prevent any transfer. And then I'll take a very thin paintbrush to really define the cut crease and make it as sharp as possible. And towards the middle where the concealer and the matte meet, I'm going to blend that out with my finger. Now taking the shade Big Bangs, I'm using this shadow wet. I'm going to place that right at the center of my lid, kind of where the cut crease is fading out into the matte. And I'll be using the shade Mary Jane, also wet, and I'm going to put that right into the inner corner of my cut crease. And I'm going to blend that into Big Bangs as well by just dabbing it where they meet, and that will do all the blending for you. I'm going to be taking the ColourPop Cream Gel Liner in the shade Fast Lane, and I'm going to use this to tightline my lower waterline. So I just went off camera and I lined my upper lash line. I'm now going to take a black eyeshadow and I'm going to smoke out the wing. And I'm also going to bring that a little bit onto the outer corner on my lower lash as well to connect the whole eye look. So in a way, I am cheating a little bit for using a black eyeshadow, but I'm sure a lot of you guys will have a black eyeshadow at home. Alright guys, so this is the final look completed. For my lashes, I am wearing the iconic lights from House of Lashes. And for my lip pairing, I decided to go with the Luxe lipstick in the shade Layover again. But I hope you guys like this look. I knew I had to create a half cut crease with this palette. It's just like my signature look, a half cut crease. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. And this, guys, is going to include my video for today. I hope you guys found it helpful. If you did, be sure to give the video a thumbs up. And also, don't forget to leave your thoughts down below in the comments. And with that being said, that is it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and I will catch you guys in my next video. Bye!